Welcome to Breaking Ceilings, Breaking Ground, the podcast celebrating women redefining real estate development. I'm Molly McCabe, and alongside my co host, Jill Ferrari, we're sitting down with the developers, the visionaries, and the builders whose projects and instincts are reshaping skylines and communities. What strikes you when you talk to the women in this space is just how expansive their thinking is. Profit and community impact are not competing priorities. In fact, they're part of the same calculation. That mindset is producing some of the most innovative development work in North America right now. This is a conversation about what's being built, the deals, the risks, the pivots, the wins, and the lives of these women. So let's get into it. Joe, why don't you introduce our first guest?
Today, we are so honored to welcome Carla Guerrera, CEO and founder of Purpose Driven Development based in Vancouver. With over 2 decades of leadership in real estate development, Carla has delivered more than $2 billion in transformative projects, earning her a reputation as a visionary developer and leader in sustainable urban development. As the founder and CEO of Purpose Driven Development, Carla leads a trailblazing firm dedicated to mixed use, mixed income projects that prioritize people, planet, and profit. Working with First Nations, governments, nonprofits, and developer investors, she specializes in simplifying complexities, mitigating risks, and unlocking value to create communities where everyone can thrive. My absolute hero. We are so excited to have you as our first guest on Breaking Ceilings, Breaking Ground. Welcome, Carla.
Thanks, Jill and Molly. Thank you so much. It's very exciting to be your first guest, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
We are so thrilled to have you. So, I just want to launch into it from the very beginning. Tell us about what you're building right now. What are your projects? Who are you building it for? And why? And what makes it important?
Thank you. Yeah, so most of our projects at Purpose Driven are on the west coast of Canada at the moment. And two of our kind of flagship projects, if you will. One is completing construction in August, so just a few months from now. And it is the first project in North America that is building housing for women by a team of all women. This project is delivering intergenerational housing for seniors, women seniors, moms, and workforce women to create that community of women, as well as elevating the leadership of women across design, development, and construction, where women are very underrepresented in these male-dominated professions and disciplines. So we're really thrilled over this to be completing this project in just a few months.
Oh, what an
Phenomenal.
extraordinary project.
It sounds amazing. I think both of us probably, got chills when we were hearing about that. So incredibly inclusive. And I think that you've already given us the answer to this, but I just want to know, purpose-driven development, very interesting name. What does it mean to you?
Yeah, it's interesting. So Purpose Driven is turning 10 this year. We're absolutely excited
Congratulations.
to be celebrating our first decade. Thanks. And we're actually planning to have our 10-year anniversary on the rooftop of the Seroptimist House, which is the project I just described, the Housing for Women by the All Women team. And yeah, the mandate for Purpose Driven when I founded it 10 years ago was really about looking at real estate as a tool to transform the way we create communities, and look at real estate as a positive tool of positive impact to create communities where everyone can thrive. That was the mandate. That is the mandate. And, this idea of inclusivity within our communities and transforming real estate from a profit-driven asset class that is about housing as a commodity to really looking at, housing as something that really is so fundamental to people's lives, and creating lives where people can thrive within their families, within their communities is very much the foundation of why I created Purpose Driven, to look at real estate development as a tool of positive change, and bringing my leadership, my skills to create real estate projects that create positive, lasting impact and change in the cities that we live in and for the families and the individuals who will live in these projects.
Wow.
I like that. And I want to capture what you said a little while back about reshaping real estate from a consumer product that developers can make money on to a foundational piece of society and something that is necessary. Really like that. Tell us, how did you, 10 years, congratulations. First of all, that is phenomenal. Maybe Molly and I can get up there to party with you.
Yeah, please come.
It'd be wonderful. How'd you get here? How did you get to where you're at today? Such an incredible career and accomplishments. What's your journey?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in a small town in Ontario with a father who was a immigrant from Italy, moved to Canada when he was 18 with his family, with as many immigrant families, not much at all to build a life in Canada with. But he was very ambitious and very tenacious. And he was a hairdresser in the little town with my mom. They both were hairstylists in the town where I grew up in rural Ontario. And on the side, my dad used to buy land and develop it with no education, no background, no skills, no experience. And I used to watch him and the level of sort of stress and tenacity and innovation and problem solving that I saw him do as a hobby was terrifying and very inspiring at the same time for me, just to see that. And so, I went on to study. I actually went to law school and before pivoting to do urban development as my master's. And I started my career in housing at our national housing agency, CMHC, and also became very interested in housing and the housing crisis that started to
Yeah.
emerge in Canada over the last several decades. And I think in the US as well, where income started to be completely detached from the cost of housing, or the cost of housing started to be totally detached from income levels in many cities and economies across North America. So I started to kind of launch my career in housing. I worked at this really phenomenal organization in Toronto called Waterfront Toronto, doing this very large scale waterfront redevelopment, converting brownfield lands to new sustainable mixed income, mixed use communities. And then I moved to the West Coast and started working in private sector development where housing really was a commodity. We had a lot of, at the time, foreign investment in Canada into our housing market. And that divide between, local incomes and the cost of housing was just growing phenomenally. And so in 2016, I realized that there's actually quite a lot of groups in our cities who have land and want to do good with their land
Yep.
and create affordable housing, but they don't have the skills or the expertise or the capital to do it. And so while I was kind of working with developers leading these incredibly successful, very profitable projects, I decided to quit that executive role and start Purpose Driven to take a different path and work with these organizations like churches and nonprofits and First Nations and governments and other institutions who have land, want to use that land for the social good of creating, affordable housing for people who live in our cities so they can stay living in these cities but didn't have the skills, expertise, or the access to capital. So that's really what the mandate of Purpose Driven is. We are a developer partner. We work with groups who have land and we basically lead the projects. We co-create a vision. We secure all of the financing and sometimes funding if it's available. We lead all aspects of the development, all phases of design, entitlements to get the project into construction. And then we oversee the construction all the way to occupancy. And the focus of our projects is really mixed income housing and mixed use development.
It's such an important component to have that partnership. And I love your description of why that's so important to you to have that mixed income, mixed community. This becomes much more of a robust, a neighborhood. It just brings so much more depth and richness to the community. Tell us a little bit about your partners. You mentioned churches, you mentioned some nonprofits, some of the Indigenous and Native peoples, First Nations peoples. Can you tell us a little bit more about your partners and how they came to you? How did they find you?
Yeah. So two of our big projects right now are, yeah, they're both, well, actually three, I'd say. So we have two pretty significant projects, which are with nonprofit partners who own, high value land, well located land, but again, didn't have the expertise, the financing, or the capacity to, deliver on the deliver anything, but
Right.
wanted to use their land. So yeah, so mostly referred to us, those clients, actually all of our clients and partners are referred to us. So Seroptimist is an organization that is a nonprofit that serves women and girls globally, mostly with education and awards programs. They had never contemplated or done any real estate development before, but they ended up sort of owning land and aging buildings and huge maintenance cost, and they came to us to say, like, we actually want to sell this property, but tell us if there's another option. And we started exploring other options together and co-created this vision of housing for women by an all-women team as a extension of their mandate, which is to improve the lives of women and girls. So yeah, so that was sort of how that partnership came to be. And then the other project that we are currently, we just had the entitlements completed and we're working on construction financing and getting the project to construction, is the largest affordable mixed income affordable housing project owned by a nonprofit entity in Western Canada and possibly in Canada, across the country. So it's 930 homes over 4 buildings and 2 phases. It's a transit oriented development at a SkyTrain station and, is really also focused on intergenerational housing. So seniors and workforce housing and families. And so this project, yeah, again, referred to us, also owned by a local nonprofit, the Kiwanis Society, and in partnership with the Seroptimist Society as well. And then another pretty significant partner of ours is the Anglican Diocese. So the Anglican Diocese
Hmm.
owns 70 assets of real estate assets in British Columbia, in the Metro Vancouver area of British Columbia. And, they had tried multiple different redevelopment attempts on their projects with various types of developer partnerships, which, went sideways, were inequitable, ended up costing them a lot of money. And they came to us to say, we want to do something different. We want to look at a different development model. And we ended up coming up with a real estate strategy for them to look at, financing, ownership, partnership, control, kind of risk, all of that.
Mhm.
And we ended up coming up with this strategy that they would, use their land to develop housing that is affordable for members of their community, of their congregations, and include worship space within those projects to rebuild their current worship space and community space. And so we're currently delivering 3 of those projects right now.
Oh,
Again, all of these partners and clients who come to us are referred to us because of our work and our particular approach and our access to the lenders that we work with.
that is phenomenal. I think we do need to take a road trip up and see some of these in person
Come
for
visit.
sure.
We'll just get in the car.
So, right, let's do it.
You're
So,
welcome anytime.
We're
Visit. We'd
down.
love that.
We are down.
And Vancouver is particularly beautiful right now, so
I,
it's a good time.
it's a
Indeed.
good time. When, you talk about all of the pieces that you're putting together in these projects, the inclusion, the mixed income, mixed use, for some of it, it gets really difficult to overlay sustainability and to keep costs down and make deals pencil. But sustainability means different things to different developers, and I just want to talk about what sustainability means to you and how you incorporate it into your projects.
Yeah. Well, sustainability certainly for us is it's the 4 pillars of the stool. So it's the people, planet, profit focus, coming from working 2 decades in kind of the exclusive sort of private sector profit-driven model, we've really flipped the script on development and what we do and how we do things. So it's definitely a triple bottom line approach instead of a bottom line approach. And that aligns really well with our mandate, which is to create housing or create communities where everyone can thrive. And that's, all income levels, all stages of life. And so that really defines our approach to sustainability, right? Because, we aren't the commodity based, profit driven
Right.
development partner. We are, our projects are profitable. They have financial sustainability to them, but we are, really our mandate is focused on social impact and, creating housing at a level of affordability that's tied to local incomes is in of itself, a social sustainability
Yep.
mandate. So that's definitely the core of our business. And then on the environmental sustainability side, it's interesting because the markets that we work in, I would say in British Columbia, we have really strong mandates like provincial mandates, national mandates, and municipal mandates that are very environmental sustainability focused, right? So I'll
Yep.
give you an
Yep.
example. Two of our projects are in the city of Vancouver, and city of Vancouver's municipal requirements are essentially equivalent to net zero buildings.
Wow.
So it's, not that we wouldn't do it anyway, but, we're working within these economies and local contexts with very high sustainability standards already from an environmental lens. So we don't have to do much, above and beyond what's already being required on that front. So, our innovation really comes into play. Yes, our buildings are net zero equivalent, which is amazing, but it's really making projects that are financially sustainable and delivering transformative social impact that I think is our, innovative play when it comes to sustainability. And it's really difficult to do. It's really difficult to do.
I love that.
I
Transformational.
interviewed,
Yeah. Transformational social impact. That's such a
I
great term.
right interviewed Michaela Connery from the Kelsey, who developed the Kelsey Air Station in San Jose, which is a wholly inclusive development that targets disabled adults and families with disabled individuals. And we were talking a bit about shifting the cost of society from caring for certain individuals to communities that support those individuals. So shifting the burden of cost from institutional investment, or investments in public institutions to these housing communities. And I think just talking to you just furthers the support for deeper investment in communities like the ones you're building, because it's actually an economic strategy, what you're doing. And just so great to hear about it. I know
Yeah.
Molly has some more questions for you.
No, I think I think that's a really good point, Jill. And Carla, I'd love your perspective on this because I know certainly across North America, particularly in the United States, we hear that doing this type of work is not profitable and that you can't make it pencil. And what I'm hearing you say in a community, I mean, we know that in Western Canada, it's expensive to build. And we've talked a bit about earlier about the implications of just how the capital markets are today. But what you're telling us is that it works. And to Jill's point, there's a bigger economic model at play here about transferring, looking at it just differently. And I'd love to have you talk a
Yeah.
little bit more about your experience in making this work both from a transformative social impact lens, but also through an economic lens that you said it's profitable, it's financially sustainable.
Yeah.
So I'd love to your
Yeah.
take on that.
Yeah. So I guess I'll first start by saying it's very these projects, for any project I've worked on in my career, anyone that has, worked in my company, these projects that we're delivering are hands down, the most complex that any of us have ever touched in our careers, coming from the sort of more traditional standard profit-driven model of real estate development. They're wildly complex, and I'll speak about that in a minute. But the other side of looking at what we're doing from an economic lens is there are some pretty fascinating statistics emerging about, the cost to the economy when our workforce can't afford to live in the cities where they work.
Yeah.
We have so many examples and stories of, the, teachers and nurses who are fleeing the cities that, the urban centers where we're living and working because they can't afford to live there. Vancouver has this problem in a very significant way. We have, young professionals, trades, so many different people that our economy relies on for its workforce who cannot afford to live here. So they're either, paramedics commuting 3 hours to come to work, or teachers and nurses that are just exiting an exodus out of the city. So I think if we're going to talk about the kind of financial impact or the economics, we really need to look at what is the cost of not having housing for everyone in our cities that we rely on. Our daycare workers, our nurses. So our business model is really about, bringing that to light as well, because it's real. And the economic loss of not having affordable housing for the workforce is a very significant cost. And then the other really interesting statistics that are emerging are that as we build these projects, they have a huge economic impact on, GDP and, the building of housing that is affordable for our workforce and the people who live in our cities actually has a pretty big ripple effect on our economy. So, but in terms of our projects and how we make them financially sustainable with our clients and our partners isn't a really complex formula. So basically, we build pretty extensive capital stacks that include private lenders, of course, as well as public investment and lending, and also grant dollars that are sometimes available for these projects on a kind of per door basis. So it's really about kind of stacking together as many different sources that we can of public, low cost, low interest, long-term financing with our federal government provides financing at 50-year amortization rates that we really need to make these projects pencil, together with, private debt. So, lending from kind of traditional sources at banks. So that combined with the public financing together with any grants or subsidies that we could possibly get access to, that we can't really depend on, but are sometimes available. And so those can come from the federal or the provincial or state governments. Sometimes they'll have these grants available to help fill equity gaps in the project, sometimes not. And then we combine that with heavy negotiations at the municipal level on fee waivers. So development cost charge waivers and expedited approval timelines within the municipalities that we work. And that is all, sometimes it's policy, but it's often more not, like advocacy and relationship driven negotiation, being able to tie what we're doing and the impact we're creating to larger municipal objectives and show the win-win of these projects. We're able to sometimes pull rabbits out of hats, right? With fee waivers and expedited approvals and just getting that collaboration, right, at the municipal level. And then on top of that, many of the partners and clients that we work with, they have land already. So there is, no land cost or really significantly discounted land cost. And then on top of all of that, we have to structure projects the way the pro forma requires, right? So they're often a mixed income model. So there is some market level housing combined with below market housing, combined with maybe a deeper level of affordability if the project can sustain it. And then I'd say the next pillar is, really maxing out the density on the project. So we really increase the revenues as much as possible. Again, that's heavy and hard negotiation with the municipality beyond what they typically would allow, because we're delivering on huge social impact. And so that's the formula. It's different for every project, and it's wild and complex, but that's what these projects require to work.
So, we often hear that women create the most comprehensive and inclusive projects because we are responsible for so many things. And what I'm hearing from you in these capital stacks is patience, so much patience and time and passion. I just, thinking about the connection between all that patience and time and passion, and you as a woman developer having all of these pieces of your life that you're responsible for and that you need patience for. And that kind of leads us to our next question. Who do you care for in your world? Kids, parents, community? And how have those experiences given you the patience to deliver these incredibly inclusive, transformative projects?
Thank you. That's a great question. Yeah. So, I would say alongside patience, the other kind of key foundational requirement to do these projects is a lot of creativity and a
Yes.
lot of kind of resilience and
Yes.
relationship driven approach. Because, from what I just described, financing, municipalities, design teams, clients, partners, like your team within your company, like everyone is, relying on you to deliver what you say you're going to do and in the way you say you're going to do it. And so, who is relying on me? I mean, I have two children who are incredible and, supportive and have to give up a lot to have a mom that runs this company. They're 14 and 12 almost, and very active, athletic preteens. And yeah, I'm not them
Mm.
on the sidelines at their games, at their soccer games and their volleyball games. Like that's not me. And I have a lot of feelings about that. But you know, they see me, making these transformative changes in the world and in people's lives. And I hope that that one day, you know, lets them have a different view of, why I wasn't always there on the sidelines at their soccer games the way other parents have been. But yeah, so my kids, certainly my team at Purpose Driven, who are incredible. They're so locked into our vision and what we do and how we do it, but I really consider our company a family, and taking care of each other and relying on each other is so critical.
It's
And
wonderful.
then yeah, just like, my community of close friends and family. I have aging parents like most
Yeah.
of us. So we're in that generation of dealing with a lot of aging parents and all of the complications and things that come along with having that, and aging family members, that aren't necessarily here where I live, and but trying to figure out how to be present and
Right.
care for them and the best way that we can. So yeah, that would be it.
I think you articulate so well what so many women experience, and this being in this generation that has, the sandwich generation, right? But you also articulate the importance I think that women bring because you see things on in a maybe a different way than someone who is not caring for all of these different people and who doesn't feel those heart tugs to be on the sidelines of the soccer game. I feel that as well, having, and I know Jill does because we both have kids, about the desire to be both and how challenging I mean there's nothing that says that you can live your life in a balanced, truly a balanced way. It's that some things have to give, and I really hear that from you, and I think that's it's gratifying. It's gratifying to hear that we're all sort of experiencing something similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and as a daughter of a single mom, was so moved to hear about your latest development and that population as a target, because I think one things that my mom didn't have that this project will bring is community. We were the only
Mhm.
family that included a single mom in our neighborhood in suburban Detroit. So to provide a space where women with similar life experiences can be in close proximity, and it will just generate this organic cohesiveness and support and network that would not be present otherwise.
Mhm.
Honestly, will probably change the trajectory for those kids. So
And
kudos
those
to
women.
you and the women. So yeah, just wonderful.
Yeah.
I think we will ask one more question and then we're going to close it out, because we really want everything you've talked about is so innovative. But where are we going to next? I mean, you're already ahead of most developers that are putting mixed use, mixed income deals together, but where is the opportunity for innovation? Where do we need to go?
Yeah, so great question. I started Purpose Driven um 10 years ago, and it has taken us sort of like 10 years to figure out how to make these projects, to Molly's question, make these projects work, make them financeable and deliverable to get them to construction. I think, that's 10 years of like building different lending relationships and figuring out the model and figuring out the capital stack. Cause like from our lens, like lots of people can deliver a project, but it's coming up with, the vision that is solving a real world problem in our cities and communities in a way that is multi-layered, right?
Uh-huh.
That's the innovation in what we do. And then also being able to get it financed, right? Being able to find the money to deliver these projects when they're not profit driven. That's the innovation. And we spent 10 years figuring out how to do that. Like, how do we create the visionary projects that solve so many challenges around affordable housing, inclusive communities, our the economic stability for providing housing for our workforce, like, you know, dealing with social isolation, like you said, of single parent and seniors in our communities. Like that to me is the innovation. And then figuring out how to do that when, it's not just about driving the bottom line. So how do you build a capital stack and get lenders interested in these projects when they're not delivering, the highest returns or some case
Right.
any returns? So what's happened in the last, 8 to 10 months is many of those kind of lending programs that we relied on because of changes in government, changes in the economy, changes in the market. Many of those lending programs have dismantled. They aren't
Mhm.
available any longer. And like you said, Jill, that's the cyclical nature of development. We go through these cycles. We're going through a really challenging cycle in housing delivery in Canada, but in particular, the kind of housing that we deliver has never been more challenged in, the last decade of purpose-driven's existence. So the innovation we need and we are looking for is more financial partners who are like, you are doing good, you are delivering, you know, transformative social impact in the communities that you work and how you're structuring these projects and bring them together. We're interested in being part of that. We are interested in, being long-term patient capital partners in this project because, generating the highest return isn't exactly what's motivating us. So we really need those partnerships. We need more groups with land who are inspired by the vision of what we're doing and want to be partners in helping create more projects like this and
Yeah.
more financial partners. Because I think when, the land and the capital stack can come together, for us, anything is possible. And we've got the rest very strongly in our company to be able to deliver it.
What a great way to close out this session. That's a wrap on this episode of Breaking Ceilings, Breaking Ground. Carla, thank you so much for being with us and helping us to launch this podcast. Please let our listeners know how to contact you. Would it be your website or an email? What would that be for you?
Yeah, our website or email. Our website is purposedrivenroi.com. And then my email is carla@purposedrivenroi.com. So would love to have conversations with anyone who is inspired by what we're doing and want to be part of it.
Wonderful. We hope you all found today's conversation as inspiring and empowering as Molly and I did. If you love this episode, make sure to subscribe to Breaking Ceilings, Breaking Ground wherever you get your podcasts. And if you know a woman in real estate development whose story should be shared, who lights up when they talk about their work like Carla does, reach out through our website, www.breakingceilingsbreakingground.com, to feature her and her work. Don't forget to leave us a review and share this podcast with your network. Together, we continue to amplify the voices of women shaping the future of real estate, which Carla absolutely is. Until next time, keep breaking ceilings and breaking ground.
Thanks so much. Great to have you,
Thank
Carla.
you.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Tell me what you're working on right now. What do you guys have cooking right now?
Well, we're completing the North America's first housing for women by the all women team. So that project is like completing ahead of schedule, under budget, and it's gorgeous. No, that one is also all women team, but it's not housing for women. Ours is intergenerational housing for women. So it's for seniors and single moms and workforce women. We delivered it with a team of all women. Like every person on the team is a woman, including the site super and the project manager on site. It's been wild. So anyway, and it looks gorgeous. So that's completing in August, which is very exciting. And
In
then
Vancouver? That's in
yes,
Vancouver? Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
that's right.
how thoughtful. That is absolutely amazing.
Thanks. So yeah, so that's building like a community of women here. And then we also have the largest affordable housing project in like history of the city of Vancouver in Western Canada, and one of the largest in Canada. So it's like 928 homes, mixed income, that's really focused also on intergenerational living. So it's a mix of seniors and families and workforce housing. And it's a master plan. So it's like 4 buildings over 2 phases. And yeah, so just working through getting that financed and getting it to construction, and like a very uncertain financing landscape here, which is wild. Just things are changing so much. So a lot of the like lending programs that we had anticipated to lenders we were working with to get this project, into construction are, they're not lending anymore on these on projects. Like they're just closed, their financing shut down. So it's pretty wild, Jill. It's wild.
And I saw, and I think this was a while back, that Calgary launched a large initiative, significant funding initiative for office to residential conversions.
I didn't even know about that. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
And I brought it into my classroom because we were looking at office to residential conversions. But it sounds like just your typical housing lending options are starting to tighten up a bit.
A lot. Yeah.
Ugh,
A lot. A lot. Yeah.
that's
Oh, it's really, I'd say like, the private sector housing like has tightened up a lot the last few years in Canada, but we were building affordable housing, which was like stacked capital with, financing and funding stacked with private financing and financing. And we were able to kind of make that work for like, my company's 10 years old this year. So we were able to make that work for 10 years. I know we can talk about.
congratulations! Yay! Oh, how exciting!
Yeah, except like the last 8 or 10 months, that public capital we really depended on to build our capital stack to deliver, affordable housing has, all but sort of gone away. So it's been really challenging. So we have projects, right? Like this one's like heading to construction by the start of next year, and our capital stack, several of the options we had built in our capital stack are non-existent now. So it's and then we have other projects, like even just getting them to construction. The lenders that we would normally rely on are not lending anymore. So
Ugh.
it's wild. It's just a wild moment. It's the first time in 10 years where I feel like it took us 10 years to figure out how to build the capital stack to get these projects into construction. And
Yeah.
now, like 4 of the 5 we would kind of build in the capital stack, and relationships we built are dismantled. So it's a wild moment, but we'll get through it.
Well, and this is, one of the foundational pieces of being a developer is that ability to adapt.
Yes.
And because this funding is so cyclical and It does
Yes.
require you to, and why, when emerging developers approach me, that's the first thing I say is that it doesn't matter whether you're an owner, investor, or just a fee-based developer. The cyclical nature of real estate is something that you can't really prepare for. It's so dramatic,
Yeah.
those ups and downs. And you've got to make sure that, personally you have some cushion so that you're not relying on that income. You can
Yeah.
have those soft periods because of all that, on all that uncertainty.